welcome to Artigo, our new podcast series. We are turning 10 next year, and we'd love to share our stories and experiences with you. Our journey has taken us to many new places, and we've met wonderful people along the way. Through Artigo, the idea is that we want to introduce you to some of our friends from across the country who've opened up their homes, to welcome friends, to make strangers into friends, really. And Artigo will give us a glimpse into their homes, their beautiful culture, their food, and of course, their hospitality. So come travel with us. I am Nabiha Tasneem, project manager at the Arctic Responsible Tourism Initiative. And today we have with us Sezin Angmo, owner Jade House, Ladakh. Sezin, it's
Hi,
wonderful to see you again.
it's lovely to see you as well, Nabia.
Yes. So why don't we start about sharing a little bit about yourself? What
Sure.
what have you been up to? What's happening lately? And also a little bit probably about Jade House and your journey with it.
Sure. I'll start off by talking a bit about myself and how Jade House came to be.
Yeah.
So basically, I come from a design background. I am from Leh, main Leh town itself.
Yeah.
I was in NIF Delhi and I had no links to hospitality in any way. Um, how it started was, I was living in Delhi after doing my university, and I started a brand of my own. And 3 years into it, I wasn't really enjoying what I was doing. So I decided to take a sabbatical and a year off and just take all the money that I'd made and travel.
Yeah.
And how the travel started was also one of my aunts is with Doctors Without Borders. So she gets sent to a different crisis area in the world every 3 years.
Yeah.
So back then in 2015, 16, when I started traveling, she was posted in Jordan because of the ISIS crisis that was happening in, Iraq. And she was the medical coordinator for 3 countries. And for me, I was supposed to just take my grandmother. Basically, she needed somebody to bring my grandma to Jordan to visit her, and I was the scapegoat since I was not doing really anything at
Yeah.
that time. So I agreed, and that was, I think, the first time that I started traveling. I traveled out of the country, like, on my own of sorts. And within that 1 year, then I went back to Jordan again by myself again to babysit my cousin. Then I went to Greece. Then I went to Korea. I went to Thailand, and then that was the first time I was solo traveling as well as a solo female traveler. And that's when I realized that I really enjoyed traveling.
Yeah.
And at the end of the year, I came back to Leh, and I decided that honestly, like, that I needed to find a career that funded that lifestyle.
Yes.
So the motivation behind Jade House was also, if I may say, not this thing. It was quite the money was the motivation initially
Yeah.
that I wanted to travel the world and I wanted to generate some amount of money for that. And when I started, also, like, it's our family house, and we just happen to have 4 extra rooms on the first floor, and that's how Ladakhi houses have always been.
Yeah.
We've always had extra rooms in the house, to accommodate relatives visiting from far-flung villages back in the day, during winter or during weddings. And also because the Silk Route used to pass through Ladakh, my maternal grandmother had vivid recollections of her, like, when she was really young, having Silk Route traders come to the doorstep asking for clean rooms in exchange for goods, because that time they had barter system,
Yeah.
because they didn't necessarily want to stay at the sarais that
Yeah.
they had, because there was no concept of housekeeping back then. So I'm sure the bed sheets and everything were filthy,
Yeah.
and with the animals tied on the ground floor.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the concept of hospitality in Ladakh goes way back,
Yeah.
but for me to get into hospitality was not something that I'd intended initially. Um, but once I got into it again, the way I got into it also, because I was so traveling across the world, and then I realized that I was not your usual, tourist or traveler. When I travel, I want to stay in a place for a month. I want to get into get the real feel of the culture, local culture, and immerse myself in the local culture, be it through, food workshops. When I travel, look for experiences, local experiences. For example, I went to Italy and I was traveling for 2 months
Yeah.
through across Italy, and I was doing different pasta, workshops with different chefs in different provinces. The same with pizza also, and something similar to that. And then coming back to Ladakh, I realized that there was a huge gap
Yeah.
between what tourists wanted and what was available for them. Like, everybody was just doing adventure tourism. The itineraries were run of the mill, and there was nothing extra or special being offered in terms of, giving tourists a more cultural experience. And that's where I decided that, I would convert this the upper floor into an Airbnb and incorporate every and all the elements that I look for as a solo female traveler. And it does not have to be like, when you say an authentic Ladakhi homestay experience, it does not mean that you have to be in the middle of nowhere with the bare minimum and, roughing it out in the rough terrain. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, after one day of staying in the rough, like, roughing it out, you'd still want a comfort of a, comfortable bed and some creature comforts that you're used to. So I decided to incorporate all of these things into the rooms here at Jade House. Everything that I look for, personal touch, personal attention. When I travel, I want a local to guide me as to how not to get scammed,
Yeah.
or, the best places to eat. And I want to go to the offbeat places. I don't want to go to the, typical touristy places everywhere, which are overpriced and everything. So because these are things that I looked for, I just thought, while designing the space also, that, from a tourist point of view, what I would like. And that's how it all came to be. And honestly, when we started, everybody told me, because I'm surrounded, I live, Jade House is located in this eco sort of neighborhood wherein, 30 years ago, when the roads were being built, everybody in the neighborhood sort of signed this thing, that we would not let the roads come into the, like, our lanes, because everybody has vegetable gardens,
Yeah.
and we don't want pollution and traffic noise. So we have a designated community parking where everybody parks, and thankfully and fortunately for us, it's just 10 steps from the parking. But there are families that park their car and they walk a kilometer, 2 kilometers, you know through these lanes to reach their house, and that's a conscious decision they made, and they still stick by it. So yeah, coming back to what you asked about me and how Jade House started, this is what initially pushed me to start.
Yes.
And we're surrounded by so many homestays around that everybody was like, the way we were priced in the first year also, people were like, nobody's going to come and stay with you. We're all homestays. And, the average price of the homestays around me is 1,500 to 2,000 rupees. And the first year I started, we were priced at 3,500 rupees. And, the rooms had like bare minimum, like there was no TV, there was no electric kettle. And, it was just the bare minimum, but just good quality mattresses, and the interiors. I had sort of, personally invested myself into designing the interiors and everything. And everybody was like, we don't get as many tourists, like, being priced the way we are, and how do you expect anybody would even come? But from the day we started, and I published my thing on Airbnb, and I saw how, the interiors of all the other places, including all the hotels, because you have to understand, when I started Jade House in 2018, the word boutique did not exist in Ladakh.
Yeah.
People did not know the meaning of it. Of course, now, in since 2018, there are lots of boutique hotels, sustainable resorts, and, fancy properties that have come up. But it's just in 2018, when, things were still not as I mean, everybody was not as into building kind of properties that we have right now. So people would focus mostly on the exterior of the hotels or whatever properties that they have. instead of the interiors, not realizing that you need to spend as much money and or give as much attention to designing the interior of the place to sort of make it feel warm or comfortable or comforting in a way, like that attracts people to come and stay with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how it started. And then we, like, from the minute we published, from I think within a week, through 2018, we were fully booked through Airbnb and everything. And then we slowly started, every year it's been like, trying to tweak more the rooms, like add more amenities and make it like more comfortable. Now we have mini bars, we have, initially I thought I wouldn't put television sets at all, but
Yeah.
then because we have a lot of domestic tourists who requested for TVs, so I had to give in.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, like consciously curating the amenities also that are in the bathroom, or in the rooms also, all of these things. Yeah, I mean, there's been a conscious effort to sort of educate the tourists as well while they're here,
Yeah.
and to sort of send a subtle message also along with them of what Ladakh is, and how
Absolutely.
we're trying to sort of promote responsible tourism.
Yeah, change the narrative around it. I think, like you shared, the idea that responsible tourism or sustainable travel has to be roughing it out is not true anymore. There's
Yeah.
definitely more options across the world, and increasingly more so in India and even remote places like Ladakh, where we've seen a massive shift in terms of the kind of places that are coming up. And like you said, it doesn't really have to be middle of nowhere place. It can be in an urban space as well.
Correct.
Is as much of city as probably any other tier two, tier three city at this point in time. You have all the amenities within the space. It's changed so much in the past decade. When I used to go there earlier, versus to when I go there now. I was there last year. The change is, of course, massive. The kind of traffic that comes in, the kind of people that come in. But I'm sure in terms of like, building Jade House, being conscious with your consumption, like you shared, in the village that you are, there's an ecosystem that you've been following that you kind of stick with, right? I'm sure a lot of it has also been inspired by your travels and what you've seen when you've traveled,
Of
you've
course.
your experience as a solo traveler, as a solo female traveler. What we want, I think our needs are very different from, the regular.
Regular travelers.
Yeah, absolutely. And with your design background, can you think of like, a particular element that probably combines your, past travel experiences and design background that you've tried to bring into Jade House?
So I'll give you a small example. Like I went to Thailand for a bachelorette trip with my cousin and her friends, and we stayed in this traditional Thai, this resort. Number one, the name was in Thai, and even the furniture, everything was very, like I said, very traditional Thai and all.
Yeah,
But after the first day of finding it very exotic and nice and everything, this from the second day onwards, I started sort of, wanting my, again, like, typical nice headboard and a comfortable bed, and not wanting to sleep on the floor and, in a hut and all of those things. So that's what I realized when I came here also to Ladakh, that at the end of the day, no matter how you live in a house, or but or the kind of traditional seating and everything that we have, like in Ladakh we have the traditional, we sit on the floor and eat, not floor, but we have like a raised platform, sort of a
really low.
mattress thing, low seating thing, that may not always be comfortable for tourists,
Yes.
especially Europeans who are taller. The beds have to be a bit bigger, you
Yes.
know, because an average European male is 6 feet.
Yeah.
And here, like a lot of places, in Ladakh, because again, due to lack of exposure, not having traveled as much, people didn't really realize these things.
Yeah.
So when it came down to designing the furniture for Jade House, I made sure that it was not all traditional Ladakhi, thing, traditional paintings in your face all the time,
Yeah.
or everything wooden. Back in the day, Ladakhi house traditionally, the rooms would have wooden paneling all over the rooms, just to keep it more insulated in winters, and just to make it more warm. But when you have somebody, when you stay, like, in a fully wooden paneled room, it feels quite claustrophobic, to be honest.
Yeah.
So that's where my, I think, design this thing expertise came in, and I decided that, okay, this is how I want to do the interiors. And it does not have to be traditional Ladakhi. It just, I want to be able to offer all the creature and comforts that people are used to, but in a again, a modern setting with this thing. It's a traditional house, but with modern sensibilities, and like everything that I would look for, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
Able to
yeah,
give that to a global citizen, like
yeah,
people.
for example, if I just the place where I'm sitting right now also, we have a proper sofa, and in front of the table is, we have the traditional tables in front, so there's an element of traditional furniture also, all around the house, so that's not lost here. It does not feel like a house in Delhi or Bombay
But
or
without
anything like
compromising
that.
on the guest comfort, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So, in terms of, I think Ladakh is honestly a very special place. I think for everyone who visits, one can't help but keep going back. I think I've gone back so many times that I obviously, still feel like going back. And I wish I was actually in Ladakh right now with you in person, and hopefully soon enough this
Yeah,
summer.
yeah, please, you're most welcome.
Yes. So, in terms of Ladakh, one of the other things that has increasingly become prominent is the culinary landscape, of the region. It's really been highlighted. So many more entrepreneurs from the region have come up to do things that are unique to the region. And, when we think of a cold desert, we don't really think of food. We usually
Yeah.
think of food as sustenance. Okay, you have to just eat to live, but there's so much in terms of what the region offers, and I think that's one of the highlights for Jade House personally. What I could also see, what I experience is in terms of the picnics that you organize, in terms of the breakfasts. Could you share a little more about that and what it means for guests who come in?
Sure. So I have to start off by saying that we're a family of food lovers. We love to eat, we love to cook, and we love to entertain. So, when I
That
started
really
Jade House
shows,
also,
I think, for
sorry.
everyone I think that really shows for everyone who's been to Jade House.
Yeah, yeah. So I've always enjoyed cooking. Everybody in my family cooks, from my dad, my mom, my sister, me. Um, initially, when I started Jade House also, the idea was always that whatever food we serve at home, it has to be personally, like, prepared by us, because at the end of the day, it's a homestay, and staying true to the narrative is also important, because if I just hire a chef from outside to do all the cooking, then it's not a very authentic experience at the end of the day. So I personally do all of the cooking, prepare all the meals for the guests that's on the menu, from breakfast, lunch, dinner, everything. And in terms of the culinary experiences, my sister does this authentic Ladakhi lunch experience at the Jade House and at the Stock Palace, and it's by reservation only. And even that actually came out. The how it started was because we had guests coming in asking us, where can we go and eat Ladakhi food in Leh? And at that point, we there was not a single place that we could safely recommend, because there was nothing back then.
Yeah.
Namza hadn't started, and there's no other place that we could personally vouch for. And they would, or we would have guests who would say that, oh, we're going to Tibetan kitchen to try some Ladakhi food, not knowing that there's a stark difference between the two. I mean, the two different regions. Of course, we were part of Tibet back in the day. If you talk historically, like, Ladakh was part of the Tibetan kingdom. But when it comes to food, our food has been greatly inspired by, um, our history, which is like, for example, with the Silk Route came the Yarkhandi traders and the introduction of Yarkhandi pulao into the Ladakhi palate. So things like that, and people saying that Tingmo and Shapta are Ladakhi. We're going to Tibetan kitchen to have. We had Tingmo and Shapta, and the Ladakhi. They really enjoyed Ladakhi food, and so it was more out of the need to sort of establish a sort of Ladakhi food identity that the experience in itself started. Then once my sister started that, I decided, like, because again, when I travel, like I told you, I do food experiences all across, like wherever I travel. So I decided, for example, I was in Sicily and I went to this ex Four Seasons dessert chef and I learned how to make tiramisu from him. Because it's not like during the pandemic, as you know, everybody was a YouTube chef. You can just look up recipes and start cooking. But for me, it's important that, how do you know that you have the authentic taste? You've cracked it, unless you have gone to the place and tried the real deal. For kimchi, if I'm serving Korean food on the menu, it's because I've gone and lived in Korea for a month and traveled extensively, learned from the locals how to make the best kimchi or the best kimbap, which is the Korean sushi rolls, things like that. The same with pasta, pizza, and everything else. So, because of the experiences I was doing across the world, I decided that, coming back here, nobody else was doing experiences. I don't know for what reason, but everybody was so invested in this adventure tourism, trekking, and all of these things, rafting, that nobody was really paying attention to the cultural aspect of tourism. So
Yeah.
we started doing momo making at Jade House. I started doing a heritage walk through Old Town. So the property is 500 meters from the main bazaar, and the shortcut to the market goes via the old Leh Town.
Yes.
And you cross, the old Baker Street. You cross the Central Asian Museum. You cross Gurdwara Datun Sahib, you cross the west gate of Old Leh Town. So I just took it upon myself to, slowly, at least, like, start educating my guests on, like, and when the guests would come, they would not have any of these things on their itinerary. It's, they'd come here and then I'd be like, come, let's go for a heritage walk. Before you start exploring from tomorrow, let's first educate you on the history of this land, because that's how I travel. I do a walking tour, on the first or second day, before I start exploring all of these other things, because then the land makes more sense. Everything else that you explore later, it makes more sense because you can relate to, the history that you've learned on the first day.
Yeah.
So yeah, culinary experiences, we do this, and then we of course do picnic platters, and we organize picnics if and when we find time, and thankfully it's quite often, because again, like I had told you earlier, that I only accept as many bookings as I can humanly handle, and which is like, thankfully, fortunately, because unlike most of the properties in Ladakh, we don't have any big loans, or we don't have any loans, and we have the luxury of choosing if and when we want to host people, and at the end of the day, because it's our home, so we have to be careful about who we let in. So we've been really lucky that way, touch wood, that we've had the pleasure of hosting some amazing people across all these years. And, I'm still on first name basis. I remember all of my guests, and everybody messages me, texts me. And that's how it is, because the amount of personal attention that I give to each one of my guests, I think it's that which makes them come back again. I have some regulars who come almost every year. So yeah, I think I may have strayed away from the topic. Please edit that out.
No, I think we are good. No, for sure. I think even in terms of like, the kind of influence that you spoke about, I was in Central Asia. I was in Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan last year. And, there are so many similarities in terms of the words we use for our foods or our fruits. They 1 to 10 is the same as, in Hindi, or Urdu. And the kind of food and influence, like even simit, which is very Ladakhi, and, you have it. I tried something which was exactly the same in Uzbekistan. And there's just so much cultural influence that kind of comes with where you're eating. And I think it's really important to understand the history to really be able to join the dots, and connect where this is coming
Of
from.
course.
And in terms of, like the experiences that you shared, I think one of the best parts of living in a homestay or living with a local family is that you get to see the place unlike anything else. Like you probably wouldn't know of half the place without them, because they see it every day. They know the ins and outs, they know the rules, they know what's best and what's not so good. In terms of the clientele that you've had at Jade House, of course Jade House has been exceptional in that. I think you've also been featured in international magazines across Europe, and there have been a lot of international guests who've come in. So in terms of, a domestic clientele or like an international clientele, do you feel that there's like a difference in terms of what they seek, and also in terms of, really going off the beat? Because as we all know, Ladakh is known for its landscapes. People come to see the lakes, the mountains, but there's so much more to offer. And within, increasingly sort of, for lack of a better word, competitive world in tourism, people are willing to explore and, do more beyond, beyond the landscape, beyond the nature, or beyond the adventure part of Ladakh. So, in terms of the experiences you offer, or like the kind of, hidden things, what would really excite you if you look at Ladakh as a tourist, but not, as a local?
Okay, so first I have to answer. I'll answer your question, the earlier question on the difference between the international and domestic tourists and the kind of Ladakh experience that they're looking for. So, from my personal experience, from the kind of guests that we've hosted at Jade House, what I've noticed is most of the domestic travelers generally come here to get some respite from the heat. The obvious, and then they come for a short amount of time, maximum would be a week, and they basically come to just get away to the mountains, or for adventure sake maybe, or just with the family for a vacation. There's no specific agenda like of as such, when they come to Ladakh. And of course, to be able to find to be able to travel within your country to a place that feels completely foreign, from the rest of the country, and it's a different experience in itself. So in terms of that, yeah, domestic to travelers mostly are not really looking for, like, much. They are just generally coming here to do the
From there every
run
day.
of the mill touristy itineraries, or just following what they've seen some travel vloggers, the places that they want to check things off their list basically. And I think they do the same when they travel to Europe or this thing, other places, that Eiffel Tower ke samne ye photo, this. So here also they're like Khardungla top pe ek photo, Pangong pe that, Shah Rukh Khan arms outstretched photo, and things like
Really
that.
nice photo.
But of course, not all domestic travelers are like that. We've had some amazing families who've wanted to. We had this one scientist from ISRO who was part of the first Chandrayaan, this gentleman who would come with his family, and they wanted to go to, for example, they wanted to go to Hanle to the observatory. He wanted to take his grandson out there and, give him a technical tour and everything. Then we've had some artists. We have some chefs who come from Bombay or other parts of the country, who come foraging for different ingredients every year. And these are people who come, like, at least one of the chefs that I know, who's a really dear friend also, I'm not going to name him, but he comes every year, and then he comes foraging, and he's amazing. But these people don't necessarily go to Pangong and Nubra and all of these places. Then, other than that, for international tourists, it's mostly, again, the call of the unknown and wild, and wanting to go trekking, the adventure side also, but mostly it's spiritual, wherein they want to visit monasteries, they want to meditate, they want to sabbatical from their very extremely hectic lives abroad, and they come here to sort of, some people come here to find themselves, for peace. I had this last year. I had this, really what do you call, famous person who had come in for privacy, and he had also, again, like, he was going through a lot personally, so he wanted to come here. He wanted to get checked by a Tibetan doctor. He wanted to do some meditation, and he just wanted to get away to the mountains. He'd come to India actually for an event, and his people in India who were coordinating his travels requested me to sort of host him for a couple of days, because he'd mentioned that he wanted to get away to the mountains for a bit. So he came to Jade House, stayed here for a couple of days, 2 days, and then on the third day I sent him to this far-flung village which is only accessible by foot. And I sent him for a night, and it's mostly, there are 13 families that live there, and mostly older people. And I have this lady out there, young lady, who's sort of, every all the youngsters in the village have migrated basically to Leh, but she stayed back because her dad's really old, and she didn't want to leave him behind. So she is like the most enterprising woman in that little village. So I sent some guests out there, and then I give her, like, tell her in advance that's, I'll be sending some guests, and she prepares like whatever's growing in her garden. She'll prepare a lunch for them, and they have lunch, and then you hike back. So it's like a full day hike. Like, it'll take 3 hours to get to the village, and then 3 hours to come back. And yeah, like, so I sent that gentleman there for the night, and I was like, you stay there the night, and just, there's no phone network, there's no electricity. It's from 7 o'clock till 11 o'clock. And of course, I didn't tell I mean, I may have forgotten to mention to the family there of how highly placed he was, in the world. They
Yes.
took him to farm, and the morning they woke him up, and they took him aloo nikalne ke liye from the khet. And he showed me pictures later that the father woke me up, and he was like, come, let's go work in the field, and, like, take out potatoes from the field. And he thoroughly enjoyed that experience. And so I was aghast, because I was like, I'm so sorry, like, I should have informed them. But he was like, no, it was so therapeutic, like, to come to a place where nobody knows me, and then to be able to do that.
Yes.
So yeah, and the same thing happened with this Bollywood gentleman who came and stayed with us during the pandemic.
Yeah.
He was lovely. Initially, I was very reluctant to take his booking, because I thought, oh, Bollywood, like, he may come with his own, like, airs, and, like, this.
They
But
want
once he was like, I promised Bombay's gone back into lockdown, and I really don't want to go back. And if I can stay for, like, another 10 days, and, like, I want to extend, and I want to stay in Ladakh, and I want to stay with you. So because the shooting crew had wrapped up and gone back to Bombay, so he came and stayed at Jade House, and, like, every day, no airs, nothing whatsoever. I took him to the market, like, for coffee, and showed him around, and, like, he was getting literally mobbed. And unfortunately, like, for him, I hadn't seen any of his movies. I don't really watch a lot of Hindi movies. So I was like, oh, you're famous. And then he was like, yeah, a little bit, I guess. But yeah, I mean, so that's the kind of clientele that's been coming in. And for the international guests that I told you, like, people come here for peace, spiritual reasons, to find themselves, to for everything possible. I had this other gentleman from New Zealand who wanted to meet the Dalai Lama, and he had been sort of following the itinerary of the Dalai Lama, but had not been able to meet him.
that.
And I chanced upon him at a coffee shop,
Okay.
and I, like, he was just sitting there dejected, and I had just come out to get some permits made for some of my international guests. And I shared the table with him, because there's no place to sit. Like, while waiting for the permits, I just went to this coffee shop to, grab a coffee, and I sat down, and I was like, and then he just poured his entire heart out to me, that I, have been trying to meet the Dalai Lama, and this is this, and, I've come to Ladakh, and all of that. And I just offered, like, if you're looking for a place to stay, and I didn't charge him. I was like, you can come and stay with this thing, us at Jade House. And he came and stayed with us for a couple of days. And then I found out the next probable itinerary of His Holiness. And I was told him that you need to go to the McLeodganj, and it's probably where you're gonna be able to meet him, because there's no point following him from Ladakh to, South India to everywhere like that. You just go where he lives and, try and get and secure an audience there. So yeah, I mean, that's the kind of people that, I end up meeting.
So wonderful, I mean, of course, when one travels, we meet all kinds of people, but I'm sure when hosting, as a host, it's also a very different kind of experience. And I think, like you shared, like people coming to do things which seem so novel for us, like
Yeah,
I'm sure for people in the village, like farming is just every day, but for somebody who's not experienced, the novelty of it is just so astounding that even the most mundane everyday thing becomes like this really cherished experience and a memory that they will, take back with them.
of course. And I think it's these things that, the small things that really add up to the experience. So when you talk about the Ladakh experience also, when I have inquiries from guests, for the itineraries, that, oh, what do you suggest we should do? Everybody is again looking for a different kind of experience. So I asked them that, what do you enjoy when you travel? Do you enjoy going, checking out food, like, different food places, or do you enjoy a more cultural experience? If so, then I will set up, walks, art walks with local artists and things like that, or, a heritage walk and things like that. um and accordingly, if and you can gauge from the conversation you have with the client, like, if they're like, oh, we want to go to Nubra, Pangong, we want to do everything, so then I'll, automatically just not mention the offbeat places, because I know that, they have a set amount of time and they want to do all of these places. So let me just suggest a more touristy itinerary, and they're happy with that. So there's no sort of right or wrong in that. It's just different people are looking for different kind of experiences, which is fair enough. It's fine. They're on a holiday, and of course, I'm not going to impose that. No, you have to know about our history and culture. So it's only for people mostly who are interested and who, are curious. So I'm happy to engage, and I'm happy to talk and educate. So yeah.
And of course, I mean, your experience of, living there, living for all your life, of course, comes in handy. You know the landscape, you know the people, know who to connect with, whom. I think, like you shared, you've been very lucky with the kind of guests who've come in. But I'm sure there have been challenges, in the way. It always looks rosier when you everyone paints it that way, but I'm sure there's the other side to this as well. So would you want to share, like, some challenges? You've also become a mother recently. I'm sure that comes with its own set of challenges, juggling two full-time roles, really. So yeah.
So, in terms of challenges, initially, I think it was, um, to be honest, when I started off, I was quite clear about how I want to run this place. And like I said, I mentioned earlier, from the beginning, we've been very selective, if I can say. We've only been taking the I only take on as many bookings as I feel comfortable with. And even now, after becoming a mom, I have a 3-month old now, and thankfully she's a very calm baby. And we you wouldn't even know that we have a house full of guests. People are acclimatizing, or people have gone about their itineraries. And yeah, like, we've started, like, this year we started a month late. Generally, we open for operations from the 1st of April. This year we started from 1st May, because I sort of wanted to settle her, like the baby, into my routine, and sort of get an idea of if it's going to be doable or not. But thankfully she's been so calm. And since 1st May, the guests that we've had, people have told us that they weren't even aware that there was a baby in the house. They couldn't tell.
That's
Because there's been no, in terms of the kind of personal attention I've been given to all of my guests, I'm still very much involved. I'm still doing the cooking. And it's not as challenging as such, because we like, I don't know if you've read in the the Outlook Traveler Awards, this thing write up also, I had mentioned that we take food orders in advance, portion orders in advance, to minimize wastage also, and also to be able to serve fresh food, because unlike hotels and other properties, we don't use any masala mix or like pre-made this thing. um, Everything is prepared from scratch. So in terms of like serving lunch, dinner, breakfast, which could be chaotic with a baby, of course, if people want different things to eat, but when you take orders in advance and you prep in advance, it's quite doable. And the fact that we only have 4 rooms, so there's not a lot of guests, and I have a staff of 2, so it's quite manageable. But initially, I think uh, the only this thing we had was listing on different platforms. The first time when we started, I listed on a few different booking platforms, unknowing. I mean, I was quite naive that then. So then the kind of clientele that started coming in, which was again through Airbnb, which is now the only platform that we are listed on, the inquiries are very filtered. In terms of like listing on a booking.com or on Agoda or something, people have different expectations. They think that they're booking a hotel wherein they'll get room service, or um, or even the I think the kind of clientele that we initially I think it was 1 or 2 this thing traumatic experiences we had. And after that, it was a conscious effort to sort of delist from all of these platforms, because that's when I understood that the kind of niche that we are attracting, we can't afford to disturb with them by listing on any and every platform. Because again, like you say, brand placement is important. So you have to be careful about where you list also, and I think the kind of clientele that you attract. Because again, like if I get an inquiry from I've got inquiries like from, for example, I'm just giving you an example of like, oh, from Gurgaon, like I had a group of guys who wanted to come in and wanted to get their speakers and hookahs and everything, and they were and these are just on the telephone conversation that we had, that they were like, can we get a speakers, can we get a hookahs, can we get this? And I, you can't outright be rude, but then I just politely diverted them to the kind of property that they would probably be more comfortable in. Because I very politely explained to them that we're a homestay in a residential area surrounded by other homestays, and you may not exactly want the kind of experience that we have to offer. And these are clients that would not appreciate the kind of experience that Jade House has to offer. The fact that you have homegrown organic vegetables growing in the front yard, that you can choose what you want to get cooked for your meal, and the fact that there's no traffic noise. Because then again, I had another instance where the guests just got off the car and they refused to walk 10 steps from the car to the door, because they said that we want the car to go in. So I told, hey, the guests, that the car can take you, till the parking. From the parking is just 10 steps. Even if the car could go in, it cannot drop you to your bedroom.
Yeah, of
So,
course.
and then if you're coming to Ladakh, you have to be prepared to walk, because, if you can't walk 10 steps from the parking till the doorstep, then I am sorry, you're coming to Ladakh. If you walk to any tourist attraction, you have to walk. If you go to any tourist attraction, if you go to the monastery, you have to park the car, your taxi, and you have to climb the stairs.
Yeah.
If you go to Shanti Stupa, you have to park in the parking and you have to climb up again. So if you come to Ladakh with these unreasonable, expectations and the sense of entitlement that the car is going to take us inside everywhere, then Ladakh is not the place for you.
For sure.
So
I think, yeah, I mean, that is, that's really relevant, in terms of the people who come. I think everyone should have some sense of understanding of where they are going to, what the place is like. or what the experience could be like for them, before really signing up for that.
Of course. I
And
mean, a little bit of research won't, hurt.
not anybody. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think on that, I'd like to, wrap up this conversation and ask you, because you run a homestay, you are a local, so you understand the sensibilities of the region. In terms of travelers who come, and, most of our audience is really responsible travelers who seek the kind of experiences that Jade House offers. In terms of helping them from a local perspective or from a host perspective, what do you think are some of the things that they should keep in mind before, when they're planning their trip and while they are there in Ladakh?
So while planning their trip, I think they should always be in touch with their local hosts to get a, like, for example, at Jade House, for each and every guest, 1 week before they fly, I send them a real time weather update and a packing checklist so that they don't overpack nor do they underpack, you know because again, like, people think Ladakh, oh, it must be always cold, and they come in June, July with these thick jackets, and it's so hot out here. I mean, thanks to global warming, the temperature touched 30 degrees last year, and there are hotels that have installed central air conditioning. We have portable fans in all the rooms for June, July. So it's always good to be in touch with your local hosts. Number two, listen to instructions. Like, some people may feel that they know it all. Like, I'll give you a small example. Like, I generally tell all of my guests to have Diamox the night before they fly, because it's a medicine that helps your body, deal with the, like, sort of altitude on the first day after you land. But then we have guests who are like, oh, we didn't take the Diamox because our doctor in the planes told us not to take Diamox. And I'm like, my mom's a doctor. We have, like, she's ex WHO. And if the doctors in the mountains are prescribing Diamox, it's because they've seen worst case scenarios and people actually suffering from altitude sickness. The doctors in the plains don't know what altitude sickness is because they've never dealt with such patients in the plains. So it's better to listen to the locals. Like, when we also come back in March, after the winter, um, from wherever we migrate to during winter, as locals we also rest for a full day. So it's important to listen to instructions. If the locals tell you not to do something, it's with good reason, that. And then another thing would be to sort of leave your sense of entitlement and preconceived notions behind where you come from, because out here, just appreciate even the smallest, the basic of things that you get here are like luxury for us. Running water is a luxury, forget everything else. So if you go to Pangong and you stay in a camp and there's water coming out of the tap, just be thankful. Don't, like, just be prepared for to rough it out. Like, once you're out of Leh, then you sort of have to rough it out. Nubra is, of course, there are lots of comfortable properties, high end properties now, so you are spoiled for choice. But if you go beyond Nubra and Leh, and you want to decide to explore, then be prepared for anything and everything. Like, be prepared for not having hot water, access to hot water, or electricity or network. So things like that you need to research on. And then if you have like, before traveling, if you have a certain dietary limitations, then carry those. Again, get in touch with your host, find out if those things are available. I had this one guest who was lactose intolerant and wanted to know if there was sort of what do you call, almond milk or oat milk available in Leh. So, like, I did a this thing, check of the supermarkets, and updated her on the same. So if there are things that you can't do without, it's always good to get in touch with your host to find out if those things are available locally. Otherwise, you carry it with them. Same with medicines. And yeah, other than that, I think just come with an open mind, and open mind to sort of absorb a different culture, and a different this thing, what do you call, different kind of flavors in terms of food. Because we have guests who come here, like, not at Jade House, but I've personally eaten at this other really this thing, nice authentic Ladakhi restaurant, Namza, which is only 200 meters from Jade House. So we send all of our guests out there also.
Yes, Jharkhandi pulao.
Yeah, Yarkandi Pilau. So, I've seen guests asking for butter chicken and just being pissed off, looking at the menu and being pissed off that there's only Ladakhi food. Like, so it's always good to do your research before you go anywhere. Number two, if you're coming to a place, then don't impose your culture or expect, that a homestay in Ladakh is in Pangong is going to serve Jain food or going to serve Gujarati food or Punjabi food. Like you go to when you like as domestic travelers, when we go to Italy and all, we don't ask the Italians to serve tandoori chicken or butter chicken in their restaurants. So why do we expect the same in our own country when we travel? So it's good to be open to different cultures and to open your mind to sort of different flavors and this thing also, food also. So yeah, other than that, there's nothing more as such that they need to know.
Yeah,
And of course, I to travel responsibly to come
absolutely.
and yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, like you said, I think I also how I see it is that if I am traveling to a different location or a different place, it's not only that I should try the culture, but it's also that I probably will never get to try out the local food
exactly,
anywhere else. So if I'm
exactly.
making the effort to go all the way, it only makes sense that I at least try and experience all parts of it. Whether I like it or not, that's absolutely subjective, and people might have their personal preferences, but at least to give it a shot, to go with that open mind. I hope with Ladakh really seeing so much tourism, more and more people are more sensible to the local population, to the local food and culture, and I hope you continue to get more wonderful guests at Jade House, and that we get to visit you very very soon.
Yes, please, you're most welcome. I'm counting on seeing you this summer.
Yes, yes, very most certainly.
Jade House is a family run boutique homestay which tries to offer travelers an authentic taste of Ladakh. The hosts are Ladakhis themselves, born and raised in Leh, and are passionate about bringing people together and helping them discover new cultures. Jade House offers a window into everyday Ladakhi family life and the chance to connect meaningfully with this incredible region. The hosts design each guest's itinerary, make delicious home cooked meals, and share insider tips to experience Leh like a local. From art walks to meditating with monks, they curate one-of-a-kind cultural encounters.